So you can't see at all?
Huh?
You can see though, right?
I'm legally blind. I can see barely, but I'm an innocent bystander.
Viewer discretion is advised.
Alright, so if you're familiar with the content, then you already know I don't do intros. However, this is the first installment, the first episode of District After Dark. And the idea of this particular space for the channel is just to create a space where it's just a freedom of expression, regardless of whatever the mood is, regardless of whatever the subject is. I feel like it's necessary to always have a space to express yourself, a space to say what's on your mind, what's on your heart. And, you know, if it helps, if it resonates, if it finds you, if it's something that you can, you know, gain something from, then so be it. If not, that's cool too. But it's here. And it is what it is. Enjoy. Alright, so one of the things that I find challenging in this life, and I really guess just in the culture and in this world that we live in, I find that it's hard to find an outlet for expression. Like a real true outlet for expression. A place where it's not really no censorship. Because we live in a land of the free, so they say, and we know that's not true. And you know, they always say you got the right to freedom of speech, but that's not even really true. And you can see this through your day-to-day life. If you say the outright truth without no filter, or even if you have a filter on it, it's just certain spaces in this realm that have become off limits. So a person like myself, you know, I find it challenging to feel comfortable all the time expressing myself because, you know, I be wanting to not alarm people or allow people to live in their fantasy world where as long as they don't look at it, it's all good. As long as they don't speak about it, it's all good. Even, you know, growing up, I come from a lot of death. I come from a lot of abuse, just around me within the household and shit like that. And I know it's millions and millions of people that come from the same type of background. And one of the things that you kind of taught is you don't speak about that shit. You don't talk about it. You brush it up under the rug. And you definitely just don't express yourself in a raw way. So that could become a burden, though. Trying to find an avenue to express yourself and having to, you know, search for a filter to filter out how you really feel, what you really want to say. And I watch this on a day-to-day basis. I watch people that live together, sleep together, shop together, have sex with each other, been together for years and years. However, it's certain things that is just not up for conversation. But it be the shit that need to be talked about. It be things that need to be expressed. A lot of times I notice like couples that, you know, on a surface level, they seem to be happy. They doing all the things that couples do. They going on dates. They buying each other gifts. They spending time with each other. But I realized, like, are they really doing, you know, really growing or getting to know the real person that's under the surface? Or is it just this censored relationship? And I feel like it's like that all across the board. So throughout my life, I figured out that, oh shit, I have been suppressing a lot of my self-expression because of this, because that is so much censorship and there's so much things that aren't up for discussion. But at the same time, it's like, damn, so where do you put these things? Do you throw them away? Do you just not think about them no more? Do you not say them? Do you just put a smile on your face and just keep it the fuck moving? Feel what I'm saying? And then we had these platforms like YouTube and TikTok and Instagram and all of this shit like this, where even that you can't express yourself to a certain degree. You say certain words, you talk about certain events and things like that, and you get reprimanded. So it's even censorship there. So it's not just a place where you can actually just speak about how you feel, actually just be vulnerable. So when I look at the fact that this is the world that we live in, I realize that vulnerability is off the table too. Because if you can't communicate how you actually feel, how you actually think, and be yourself, you constantly walking around in a state of suppression. And at some point, it's like holding the hose down. The water gonna come out one way or another. It's only but so long you can hold the water in or pinch it. You feel what I'm saying? So what happens is I realize it began to come out in passive aggressive ways, in other ways, sometimes manipulative ways. And people don't like to look at these facts of life. And this is why I have a hard time trusting people, because it's like I could sense what you actually want to say. I can read your body language easily. And this might be some of the reason why I don't really fuck with people and I don't really like people. I love the potentiality of what a person could be and who they can be if they actually were to express themselves and entertain the sides of themselves that are not so accepted by society or their family and shit like that. Those are the people that I actually fuck with. Those are the people that are most likely drawn to me or I'm drawn to. And I can actually have a longevity relationship with. And I look around and I'm like, damn, so nobody questioned the fact that everybody's pretty much suppressing what's actually going on. We then created a culture out of suppression. We created a culture out of saying yeah when you really mean no. We created a society where it's a certain code of conduct, and that conduct is based on really neglect. And by us doing that, all we really do, we just build up a big-ass shadow, a big-ass demon, or multiple shadows and multiple demons that eventually we become scared of. Eventually we are afraid to deal with, or we don't recognize this side of ourselves anymore. And I don't fuck with that. It don't make for a good life experience. Like, it's not even a real actual... Is that life? Like, is it really actually living life if you're not able to authentically speak your mind? And I'm not saying that you're supposed to just, of course, blurt out any and everything that come to your mind or that you feel. But if you have a strong conviction, you should have a space and an outlet to express that just for therapeutic reasons. And this is another thing that feeds why people can't communicate and they kill each other and shit like that, because okay, you might say it's okay to communicate, but it's always this underlining, this is the way to communicate. It's never just let me just say how I feel and what I see and just try to fill me on that before you put the filter on it. And this don't make good for intimate relationships. And I'm just saying this from my own personal experience of meeting people where they at. And I know I'm not the only one. That's why I'm speaking on it. But meeting people where they at, meaning okay, you know, most people are not going to come out their shell. Most people not going to reveal their actual feelings and thoughts and shit like that. So it's hard to build a real relationship in a real, just a spiritual, energetic space, you know, because compliments is one thing, flattery is another thing. But the shit is all surface level. I mean, like, I'm the type of person, like, let's get down to the nitty gritty of this shit. But that might come from me growing up where I grew up at. I grew up in a house where it probably was too much of expression. Everybody just using profanity to express themselves. And I noticed that too. Like, it be imbalances in the shit, because now when a person express themselves, they've been holding it in so long, it come out in like ways that can't offer any resolution. It's just, you know, more blurting it out, getting it out in a destructive kind of way, or in a way where it might hurt another person. And I find myself doing this from time to time. I find myself expressing something that I probably didn't realize that I was holding in. You feel me? Like now, like even me talking, you know, even for YouTube and just this world at large, it's a certain way you're supposed to present yourself. It's a certain way you're supposed to speak. It's a way to do this shit, right? You know, so going into things like this, you can't help but question, like, okay, am I doing it right, or am I expressing myself too much, or is this going to be helpful for the next person? Is this healthy and all that? Is the world ready for a motherfucker to just say how they feel? It's like big ass elephants in a room, and then it's like we just never address them. We just find new ways to cope with the elephants that's in the room, new ways to, you know, dance around them, and just really just do the most to act like it doesn't exist. I'm just saying, I'm not saying a word about to come into a realization and everybody going to start to feel the urge to actually be themselves, actually express themselves, and I don't know. What I am saying though is I find that it's very therapeutic to say what the fuck is on your mind, or even just, if you don't say it, just being able to think what you want to think. Now we live in a world where people feel like certain thoughts are wrong and certain thoughts are right. So that's another reason why I always say, be careful with the manifestation and positive and negative shit. And be careful on how you view that. Because it's all about where it's coming from. And 9 times out of 10, even when a person think they know where their expression is coming from, they actually don't even really know, because they have been holding shit in so much. So it's coming from a space of unawareness. So when we get into the law of attraction shit and think positive thoughts, and everybody's positive now, so everybody else, everything is so negative. All the positive people are talking about how, oh, I don't do these negative things. I don't hang around negative people. What you really fucking saying is, you push that shit up under the rug like everything else, and you act like it don't exist. Cool. That's most of the people in the world. However, I can't speak for everybody in the world. I only can speak for the people that's like me, and that's probably very few people that look at this fucking world and be like, what the fuck are we doing? Where are we going? What the fuck is life really? I know I can't be the only person thinking like that. You look around and you're like, they say this is the way, they say I'm supposed to do this and I'm supposed to speak like this and look like this, but you find that it's uncomfortable for yourself personally. Even though it seems to work for society or civilization or the culture or your household or your community or your job. So we constantly finding ourselves in multiple areas of our lives where we cannot get that release, get that relief, get that therapy. Now I talk about going pay a person a whole bunch of money to listen to you spew out the shit that's going on with you because they even have a conflict of interest because they're getting paid. You feel me? Not saying there's not no real good therapists out there and shit like that, but let's just be real about it. Let's just be real about why the fuck a person would need therapy. You know what I mean? You know, if we was, and I know it's never probably gonna be a kumbaya moment in life. Of course, I'm not. I know better than that. But you know, if everybody was just expressing themselves and it was an open panel type of situation, from the household to the community to the government to the culture, society, all of that shit, right? We would be healing each other just by our communication. Because communication does bring healing. When you feel understood, it feel good. And because we can't, it's kind of illegal to speak your mind or express yourself, and even what you wear, how you sound, how you look, how you walk, everything is up for criticism in this society we live in. So, it create a horrific life experience. It's a subtle horror. Like even, for example, like sometimes I could come off as a old grumpy old man because a lot of the shit that float everybody else's boat don't float my boat. Like a lot of things that people find happiness in and smiling or you know, I look at it like, okay, that might be good for you because you don't know the whole truth. You feel me? Like America, it's cool when you look on it on a surface level, but it's like the part in the Matrix when Morpheus tells Neo, well, he shows Neo the real Matrix. He said, this is the Matrix in society, and he shows everybody driving their nice cars and iPhones and buildings and skyscrapers and technology, and everything looks like it has advanced. And then he turns and say, but this is how the Matrix really looked. And what he show him is a dark ass, cold, neglected world that is going unnoticed. It's going, like I said, it's being neglected. I can't find another word for it. And when do we get to the truth of that? When do we realize, okay, I'm a part of this dark ass world. I'm a part of this neglected space. I added to it. It's added to me. And I know most people just blame their parents, so on and so forth. But at some point, you're going to realize that the systematic way of living that we live in now, it has created your parents too. It created your parents. It created your grandparents. It influenced them to a certain degree. And then they went on to influence you and tell you what's okay to say, what's okay not to say, what's okay to do, what's okay not to do. So the you that you believe you are, when you say I, when you say me, when you so, you know, because this world act like, oh, everybody's so sure about life and everybody's so sure about tomorrow and safety, everything's safe and shit like that. Everybody's pretend, it's like a pretend thing, like, you know. Everybody seems so sure about who they are and all of their beliefs and shit, as long as you don't question them, as long as you don't bring another opposing factor, which matters though. That's the problem. It's like The problem is, it's like, okay, should I not bring this up? Because it matters. It's the other polarity of the side where everybody has clung to and ran to. Should I not talk about it? It's a lot of people that's married right now jumping into marriages, and it's really just a one-sided thing where they've actually just agreed to not bring up shit, not deal with things head on, and ultimately just cope, basically. And I don't fuck with that. I don't fuck with that. That shit is not happiness for me. We live in a world that sell you a dream, so you buy into the dream. Now, when you get the Happy Meal, when you get the toys and all of that shit that's supposed to make you happy and it don't make you happy, then what? Then what? You go find something else. You go find somebody else. You go find somewhere else. And then when you get to the point where that's not making you happy or whatever the case may be, that's not fulfilling, then what? Is that the time where it's time for you to really come out and say who you are and show who you are and act? Not even show. First of all, you got to ask. Because once we get to a point where we neglected ourselves so much we don't even understand or know ourselves, or we haven't questioned anything that has been programmed and imputed into us, then we dealing with a stranger for the most part. So now you have to start asking the hard questions like, okay, well, if my parents taught me this and I've never questioned it, then, is it actually right for me? Is this actually a good correspondence for who I actually am? Or is this just something that has been imputed and programmed into me for me to create my reality from this vantage point and just live this life through? And that's when you realize you're living in a Truman Show. You're living in a simulated reality by default. Your reality is simulated because you're taking secondhand knowledge, you're taking secondhand experiences, and you're neglecting the opportunity to actually live in an unknown space and have a real experience and not just have a repetitive, archetypal type of experience to where you just, do what your parents always did, do what dad always did, do what the government say do, be a good Samaritan and things like that. Like, where the fuck has that got society? Where has that got you in your real life? It's like we live in a world where it's just a copycat. So everybody's always a reflection of of a reflection of a reflection of a reflection. For example, I come from the hood, right? So it's certain things that actually went on in the hood, just certain struggles because of resources that we didn't have. So it created a certain type of environment, right? But it didn't help that movies and music started to come out to further impress that this is just the culture of the hood. Like, you're supposed to be some cold, calculated killer. You're not supposed to really have no feelings. You're supposed to be robbing somebody. That's just the hood. The hood is supposed to be just the worst place in the world, And I don't all agree with that depiction of what we call the ghetto, we call the urban area, or the less fortunate places and shit like that, because there's a lot of brilliant people there too. So why don't we show that? Shit like that. So, you watching movies you listening to musicians and things like that. And it's like, okay, is this art imitating life, or is this life imitating art? And I feel like we done fell to a space where now everybody's imitating art. And art is supposed to be a reflection of life. So when I say that, I mean, it's just like people now, you got 14, 15-year-olds that are just bred murderers, bred to feel like they misunderstood. They are bred to wear their jeans a certain way, wear certain clothes. And this is on every level. But, you know, it always a new chapter. It's always a youth that's coming up. It's always a generation that's coming up, and they always looking for a way. And when you get constantly giving them images and music and shit like that to replace the authentic version of them as quick as you can, then what the fuck kind of world are we living in? We just living in this shit ain't the Matrix, this the Fatrix out this motherfucker. It's scary out here. It's scary. So a lot of times I find myself, you know, biting my tongue to a certain degree just to not ruin everybody else's reality. I can't, it's like, yo, you can't knock the hustle type of shit. I don't never want to be the person that's, you know, advocating because I feel like everybody need to be so real and everybody need to keep it 100 and shit like that. I'm just speaking on the fact that it's very uncomfortable doing the pretending shit. And you know, sometimes it's hard to allow people just to stay in the realm of illusion. And that's why, like I say, I keep my distance for a lot of people, because a lot of things people find interesting is not of substance to me. To each his own, though. I try to stay in that to each his own space, but I got my own judgments. I got my own opinions. You feel me? We all do. Even though everybody act like, oh, you're not supposed to, because you're not supposed to think like that. You're not supposed to say that. That's not right. That's fucking mean. But it exists though. Like, you know, we're not gonna never touch on that because it's uncomfortable. So, you know, you gotta live and let live. So sometimes it's hard to watch, and it's cringy especially just for somebody like myself, it's cringy to just watch people copy, paste, and do exactly what the next person did. Like even like with something like TikTok, right? Okay, everybody has adapted this new way of socializing where we do 15-second videos exactly the way the other person had did it, so we could get the same views the other person got. And I'm like, okay, are we champion being just a carbon copy? And then at the same time, everybody act like they so original. I'm confused. Like, help me out. I don't get it. It's like, okay, I'm gonna do the same video you did, but I got a red shirt on, so it's different. Or I did it with my back turned, so I did the dance with my back turned, so it's different. It's the realm that we live in. But then there's the real realm right up under that, right behind that, right over that big ass cloud right there of, okay, so if you're constantly mimicking someone else and participating in the trends and shit like that, then where do you find time for your authentic self? Which is somewhere inside of you, being secluded and suffocated and just, you know, buried alive. And then this the crazy part. Then when nobody could hold a mask on but for so long, and so then when the mask slip off a little bit, everybody apologizing for the shit. You're apologizing for really being you. Maybe just because it might have come out in an unhealthy way, you had to wait till you get angry to express who you really were, or you'll get a little agitated to express who you really are, then it come out. I'm the only one that do this? Maybe I'm the only one that do this. Maybe I'm just projected. Maybe I'm just out of the loop. But it's times where I snap. I'm a little snappy. I'm a little grumpy. And it comes from just being, you know, the frustration of trying to find outlets for my authentic expression. a space to actually be vulnerable, not go through the motions. A space to actually be intimate, not because we hugging and kissing and holding hands or whatever, or saying we love each other. Like, I'm talking about actually fucking with the raw spaces. And, you know, it's the other side where it's hard. You know, it's a two-way street. You got to be able to be mature enough to take the lead and express yourself so that in an authentic way, just let it be raw and just fuck what everybody else gonna think and shit like that, so that you see if there's some support there. You see if you can help somebody else through you doing it first or some shit like that. I don't know. So it's a two-way street. You know, some of us hold ourselves hostage and don't speak for ourselves or speak our own mind because we worry about the reactions, or we worry about who we gonna hurt, or who we gonna make uncomfortable, or making ourselves uncomfortable, or being looked at and seen in a certain way. But hopefully there come a time in your life where you get to a point where you find space for that. You find a space, the courage to get at space life. And let me tell you this, when you neglect certain sides of yourself, or you've been traumatized in certain areas, and it seems like there's no place to express that and get no type of therapy for that, or whatever the case may be, it's going to be a dark journey. It's going to be real dark. When I say dark, I mean it's going to just be, it's not going to feel good all the time. There's going to be some blind spots that you're going to have to be able to allow yourself to have, and come to the realization that you don't know everything, and see the world for what it is. Like, everybody just pretty much capping, as the kids say. If they still saying that, I don't know. I think Cap still kind of hanging on. I think people still be like, yo, you capping. I think they still saying it, because I know about every 3 to 4 months it's a different word. That's just the nature of the beast. You know what I'm saying? It's just something different. And, you know, people got to keep up with that shit so they don't sound outdated. You feel me? But, you know, I'm finding that when you tap into that timeless space within yourself, where you could go back and you could start to engage with the times that you started to hold back, the times that you started to refrain from expressing yourself in a multitude of ways for the sake of fill in the blank. Now, the problem with biting your tongue, the problem with being ashamed and feeling guilty about the life that you actually live, the things that you actually been through, the places that you actually from, your background and shit like that. The problem with that is it strips you of your testimony. It strips you of your authenticity. It strips you of your healing journey. It strips you of your uniqueness. Because now you're ashamed to say what you actually been through. You're ashamed and guilty about what you've done. Or maybe I'm the only one that go through this. Maybe I'm the only one ashamed and guilty of some shit I've done in the past. Maybe I'm the only one. However, you know, I find on my journey that it's hard to deal with sometimes. Like, I done been through so much shit and seen so much shit, I'll be forgetting about some of the shit I seen. I done been around so much death that it's just death. Even, you know, it's just like walking and breathing. Death is just, oh, somebody died at 16, 17. I've been seeing that my whole life. It's not shocking to me. I come from the side of the field where you be walking to the store with your friend one day, and then tomorrow he's dead at 14, 15. I have seen so tens and maybe hundreds of friends in caskets at young ages. And I realized, like, damn, before they could realize who they was or realize what they like or didn't like or and actually get their own self-expression, they had fell victim to whatever group they joined or whatever thought form or whatever trauma they was being controlled by. They felt victim to it. A lot of people join gangs and shit like that because they don't feel no sense of home. They don't feel no sense of camaraderie or acceptance. So the first place they go is to another pack of people that feel exactly the same way. It feel like home. We all talking about the same shit we ain't been through. We all talking about the shit we've been through. We all talking about the shit we didn't have and the things we were deprived of. And we created a club out of it. And it's human nature to want to seem empowered in the places that you actually feel disempowered or powerless in. So a lot of times people that are or were abused wind up becoming abusers in one shape, form, or another. I know I have, and maybe still do to certain extents, because first of all, anytime you neglect your own wants and needs, anytime you neglect, I'm going to say your own needs, not wants, but you neglect your own needs, you neglect your own authentic expression, that's abusive. Because what's actually naturally there, you're distorting it. Kind of like how everybody going to get Brazilian butt lifts, and now we got guys out here so insecure that they getting their bodies done and all kinds of shit. Face done, all the rappers, they just wilding. But it's a direct reflection of what we neglect. So everybody seemed to be looking at the symptoms of shit, but nobody's looking at the cause of it. It's like they like okay, you go to the doctor, they're in the business. First of all, it's a business. So the doctor is just really just the plug. Okay, yo, you got this going on with your heart and your leg, or you got going through some pain. Let me prescribe you some high-power opioids that are highly addictive. They're legal on the street, but you could go to the local store, right across from the liquor store, in the church, and then you can get these shits, and then now you on the payroll, got your insurance on the payroll. Like, it's all that type of game. We could give you something to hold it off for a second. So if you feel any anxiety, you just take these pills, okay? If you feel any pain, you just take these opioids. And then it just go on and on. Then we have politicians and shit complaining about, everybody's complaining about the opioid epidemic. It's not an epidemic, it's controlled opposition. It's controlled. Hopefully, if you in a space, you already kind of know some of this shit. But nobody gonna get to the cause of it, because it's a chain reaction. And at the top of that chain is rules and codes of conduct. You don't speak about this dark, deep shit. Or you don't seem smart or knowledgeable, because that's not cool neither. Like, it's just so many contradictions in life that I mean, you can't help but ask yourself, what the fuck are you doing here? And I guess, on a collective level, we just not there yet. We just ain't in a space where we could look at the cause of shit and where it come from. We just in a space where we could look at a stimulant or something to numb it or Or just call it something else and just pretend it ain't there and shit like that. Like I dealt with a lot of children throughout my life, and I have children, and I'm not just a typical parent. I really don't really know what a parent is, you know. I feel like my job is to try to be as real as I can with any child that's surrounding me for their own sake. So I'm not the person that's going to act like I'm interested in what a child is saying just because they're a child. You know what I mean? Especially if what they saying is just, you know, the average copy paste TikTok thing that's going on. I'm gonna listen to them, and you know what I mean? I'm gonna let them know that's cool, and I'm gonna look at their point of view and be open about it. At the same time, I'm the type of person that'll allow them to know, like, you know, TikTok is cool, participating in the trends is cool, but make sure you make time for to cultivate your own expression. Make sure you make time to allow yourself to be you and not always emulate what somebody else is doing or idolize someone else. And just telling them this from in their own language where they could digest it, and just being able to be an open space for them to allow them to know you could be yourself. But what I find out too is we living in a world where everybody's scared to do that, even the children. So it's like when you kind of invite a child to be themselves and to have their own self-expression, you start to see the boundaries and the limitations around them in doing that. Because if a child say what the fuck they actually mean and what they actually see, you'll be surprised. A lot of these kids know how to run in your face and act like everything all right and act like they angels, but in reality, they be on the dark web. They be looking at porn and shit. They done seen your dirty videos in your room and shit. They done caught you and mommy fucking a couple times. Like, let's be real. And then we supposed to all wake up in the morning and act like none of that exists. And then this don't do nothing. We create more fucking zombies and more maniacs that can come outside and act civilized and act normal because this new normal has been created. But under the surface, we got a whole bunch of serial killers, people that's suicidal, that nobody talk about, nobody speak of. This shit go on in household after household. Shit gets swept under the rug. You're not supposed to say nothing. That person got this anger problem, so you walk on eggshells and shit like that. Like, this is the world we live in. I come from that environment. I have created that environment in my own environment in my life. I have created an environment where, you know, you can't be comfortable in the environment, and that's only a reflection of not being able to be comfortable with myself. So it's like you only going to create the environment you have internally. You only going to create that externally. So a lot of people know how to smile. They know how to be productive in society. They know how to be productive in their career on the surface and all of that shit. But when it comes to the real shit, when it comes to addressing some real things, it's a boundary there. So then you get children walking around like I did, like creating up my own world in my backyard and in my own imagination, which works well for me too, because now I'm not just a fucking zombie out here doing whatever the government say do, whoever the fuck got a suit on or a white jacket or a degree. I'm not dumb enough to just run out and do what they tell me to do because I'm following a code of conduct that is not corresponding with how I feel internally and what I know internally. So that I suffer in a lot of my relationships from this, because as I'm constantly growing, as I'm constantly seeing and shit like that, I'm the type person it's hard for me not to point the shit out. It's hard for me not to just, everybody's laughing and I just got the straight stone face on because it ain't funny to me. It's like a lot of people, happiness is not really happiness, because if they knew the whole truth, they wouldn't be smiling. And I just try to make fun and make humor out of real shit. That's why even when I listen to comedians and stuff like that, they would have to be saying real things and making it humorous. It can't be just, oh, you trying to be funny, surface level funny, but you ain't really touching on the real shit. I ain't gonna find that funny. I got a darker humor. And this shit ain't for everybody. That's another thing we got to come to the realization of too. Everything not for everybody. I'm just speaking on the fact that it's very little space for authenticity. There's very little space for being real. That's why we got a lot of motivational speakers coming, surfacing now, and everybody sound like Eric Thomas, or everybody sound like Wallow. Everybody running to the camera and saying you could be all you can be, and don't be down, and you could do it, and all of this shit. And it's just a whole bunch of vague statements that only don't even scrape the surface. You out here telling people they could be all they could be, as vain and as vague as you can say it, yet you ain't giving them no real intimate, vulnerable content to find no comfort or find no direction in. Anybody could say, I could get on here right now, yo, look, subscribe and all that good shit, you know what I'm saying? And yo, don't let life get you down. Do the best you could do. How I'm gonna say that to the women that have been raped by their uncle? How I'm gonna say that to the little kids that have been touched by they moms and their dads, or been neglected and ain't got food and shit like that? How I'm gonna know that exists? I come from seeing these type of things and being in these type of environments. Tell me how the fuck I'm gonna be out here just telling people they could be all they could be when we got sex trafficking happening 24/7? And then everybody ignore that because whatever rapper just so-called got killed, or whatever the next trend is going on, they just so caught up in that. I'm going to not get the children the real. I'm going to not do that. It's hard. That's why I said there's really no space for people like us. We got to make our space. You know what I'm saying? We got to kind of push the envelope to a certain extent. We got to bring these conversations to the forefront and stop doing this same templated, fake-ass, bullshit, filtered way of self-expression that is kind of like, yeah, you can be an individual like this. So have your podcast sound like, set it up like that. Everybody's so much worried about monetizations and shit like that. And I get it. It's funny because I just kind of went viral on TikTok off my first ever TikTok video. And I'm always in the background popping shit like, yeah, I ain't never getting no TikTok, and I ain't got time for that shit. You know how you try to stay stuck in your ways and shit, but I find too that you got to try to stay in tune with the time so that you're able to communicate with the youth and you're able to actually live in a timeless space no matter what era you live in. You feel me? So you're not polarized, right? So I'm always popping shit. I ain't with that TikTok shit, whatever the case may be. So my sister was like, you should just get TikTok. You should just do it. You know, you're a content creator. You should have a TikTok. So I finally made TikTok, and I wasn't posting nothing on there. So finally, I make a post on my TikTok, just one post. The same post I made on my Instagram, I ain't think nothing of it. I checked my TikTok like 2 days later, and this video just going viral. Like, I'm waking up with thousands of followers, thousands of likes, thousands of just shit going crazy. You know what I mean? And as much as work as I put in on the YouTube channel, I pretty much look at YouTube as the main platform. You know what I mean? This is where I do my longest talks and shit like that and put out the most content. So I look at it like, what I'm going to do with a TikTok, and I still don't really know what to do with it, but it's just funny, the irony that when you ain't looking for the attention, when you're not trying to be down with the trends and shit like that, it would be you to get your shit go viral. Everybody doing the craziest shit trying to get 3, 4, 5,000 followers, and I just organically just post a video that I find. It's just a little short clip that I find some realness in, that I just like myself, and it's just a real message. I put that shit out, and here I go. Now I got like 5,000 followers on TikTok that I got to figure out how to get this message through, because TikTok is a platform that you could only put 10 minutes at a time, so I got to try to construct certain things for TikTok, and that's cool though. You know what I mean? I feel like it's going to help the channel in the future, but I just find that funny. And even when I told my sister, I was like, yo, sis, my TikTok went, like kind of viral lately. I've been getting followers and shit like that. She was like, that's so good. Congratulations. And I'm like, damn, that's like a thing now. Like, my sister don't really fuck with the internet like that neither, but she was just like, congratulations, because she know I'm a content creator. But my thing is, like, I'm not out here trying to appeal to everybody. So it's like, I might got 5,000 people, but probably only, maybe only like 25 of them really feel the real message and feel where I'm coming from. Because a lot of people be caught up in just the trendy shit. You know what I'm saying? So I don't look at it like I got 5,000 people that want to hear messages like this. I just got 5,000 people that fucked with the little short snippet of the message that I gave. It's whatever. It's all cool, but it just goes to show you ain't got to sell your soul for no likes, and you don't have to sell your soul for no followers. Just be you. You don't have to be Eric Thomas, the motivational speaker. You don't have to be Wallow. You don't have to do videos in the rain and do, you know what I'm saying? You don't have to go to extremes to express yourself. That's a shame that we doing that out here. And these are this the daily fight. The daily fight is to not trade in your authenticity and your testimony for what's working for everybody else. I'm scared of a motherfucker that's just telling me, like, sounding like a commercial, be all you could be, when I'm looking at the world, and the world that I live in ain't no correspondence in that. The world I live in, you get on the road, people are mean in traffic. People don't want to let you over. Nobody communicate. Everybody got their head down on their phone. That's the world we live in. So why I'm not seeing reflections of that when I'm looking at content on the internet? Why I gotta go dig for real content? Why I gotta go dig up real books and real authors and shit like that? Why I gotta go ahead and write a book just cause ain't nobody putting no real shit out there? And that's another thing. I ain't gonna be that person that's complaining and ain't actually pushing the needle. You feel what I'm saying? So I gotta, even myself, like, I put out a book that I'm proud of. I put out a book that I wish somebody else wrote. You feel what I'm saying? I'm pushing myself to say the shit I know nobody else feel comfortable saying. The shit that need to be said. The conversations that is needed. Because other than that, what the fuck are we doing? We creating more of the same. A world that you cannot actually engage with people in, that you have to speak and talk and conduct yourself in a certain way that is not real and authentic to you. And trust me, I know the suffering that comes from not being able to show up as yourself. I see right through people, because I see right through myself. I look back, even I've been on YouTube for going on 3 years. Some of the shit that I got, I see where it lack authenticity at. I see how I'm working myself into being more comfortable and doing the work to integrate more of a authentic version of myself, more and more and more. And that's why I created this space, District After Dark, so it could just be more of a real realm, more of a reflection of what's actually going on and what's needed to be highlighted. So it's okay to find your spot. It's okay to find your space in the world, but make sure that that's what you strive for spiritually. That's what you strive for emotionally, intellectually, mentally, all in all areas. You strive to just be cool and being odd. Be cool and being and get into a space where you're comfortable with the things about yourself that were once uncomfortable. That same shit turned into your power. It's that same thing turned into your gifts. A lot of times we hold ourselves back because we thinking, oh, it's not gonna resonate with nobody. Everybody else not doing this. I don't see a lot of people getting likes and shit on the shit. We're not just being true to who the fuck God put us here to be. And I used to look at my path like that too. Like, damn, like I got a path where I was born into just a house full of people that abuse drugs and alcohol. They verbally abusive. They was born into a house where people stealing, a block where people shooting and all this shit, all of these things, right? And I know a lot of people glorify the hood, but I can't glorify ignorance, you know what I'm saying? I understand because I was given time to grow into my understanding that a lot of things is just people doing out of straight ignorance, but we learn to cope with it. So I was born into that, so I got to take that and make the best of it that I could. I can't just totally forget that, neglect that, and walk away from it and act like it never happened. You know what I'm saying? So I sound like how I sound. I act how I act. And don't get it fucked up. This ain't only the hood. This is on all fronts. And them gated communities, everybody run up to the gated communities. That's cool. I understand people want to be safe and shit like that. But the same shit going on. A whole bunch of families neglecting what's really actually going on. And that's why you got little Bobby shooting up the school, little Joey wilding the fuck out. And these kids are so entitled. And all they want to do is shop on Amazon and shit like that. Nobody want to do sports. None of the kids want to be active no more. They self-esteem low as hell. A lot of these kids becoming suicidal at a young age. Man, it's a lot of shit going on that's very real and very vigorous, but don't nobody really want to talk about it. Like, you can't just sweep the fact that your child having suicidal thoughts under the rug, that your child don't like themselves. You can't sweep that under the rug. And this coming from somebody, myself, like, I'm not fucking perfect. You might ask people from my past, people that I done dealt with in my darker days when I wasn't aware or in control of some of the shit or just didn't give a fuck. They'll tell you, like, they might tell you I ain't shit. They might still have that view on me, and that's cool. But I know I learned from a lot of the things, and not only learn from them, I learned where the root of the problem. So even myself as a parent, I feel like I have the capabilities of being a better parent now because I'm more intimate with myself, so I could be more real and more patient and intimate with my children. You feel me? I could see where they coming from instead of just trying to push on my mentality onto them. You feel me? Or just rule over the kids. Oh, this is my house. I pay the bills and you shut the fuck up and that's that. You know what I'm saying? Like, we gotta be more careful with that. Like, I come from, you won't have no space to speak. You just shut the fuck up and do as you told. And sometimes that work. Because a lot of times these kids now, they think they got too much of a voice and they just be spewing out bullshit. They just be saying anything. They be saying everything Glorilla said or Cardi B or whatever or whoever the fuck is the hot topic, you know what I mean? And swear they be knowing shit. Sometimes you gotta put them in their place, but it is what it is. You know what I mean? Why we can't talk about it? You know, I feel like in the schools, they need to be teaching astrology early. And if you think astrology is some bullshit and you got this far in what I'm talking about, then you probably real lost. Like when I say astrology, because astrology teach you a lot about just your tendencies and shit like that. It got a way of showing you who you are and why you are the way you are. It's a good tool when you pair it with a lot of other things. Like, I think these kids need to be spending more time in solitude, spending more time off of the technology and things like that. Because we got to understand, we still under experimentation with this technology. This technology ain't been around but for so long. It ain't even been around really for, I'm talking about open to the public. It ain't been open to the public for 30 years yet. We ain't had, 2022? Yeah, we ain't had cell phones. I don't think, maybe we just might be touching 30 years. We ain't had the internet for, I don't think we had it for 20 years for the public. So, you know, we don't know what these gadgets and what this algorithm is doing to ourselves and the youth. You feel me? So we supposed to be having a little bit more parental control over that shit and kind of pushing these kids to deal with life as it is in real life, so they're not going into it unequipped and going into it with a space where they surprised and now they become a statistic. So I keep it real with the children. I keep it real with my kids. I tell them, like, I encourage them to find out who you is and be yourself, and don't be ashamed of who you are. And don't be ashamed of your circumstances and where you come from. Don't be scared to talk about it. Period. But you know, like I said, a lot of people then said, fuck it, this is what works, this is life, day to day. You give them a TV dinner and a beer, and they cool with it. Give them a little job, everybody cool with it. How many people you know complain about they boss and they supervisor and all that shit like that, and talk about how they hate where they live and shit like that, but they never even take a risk to change that. There's nothing you could do for them. Stuck in a subconscious loop. I can't do nothing but do my best to have compassion for them after I have learned to have compassion for myself in those same areas. You feel what I'm saying? Like, let's just be real. You can't give nobody something you don't even have. And that's what I'm saying. Like, in this society, that's what we do. All right, everybody holding the door and they polite outside, and then at home is a totally different thing. People nice to strangers and mean as hell to their siblings. Like, I don't understand that. But at the same time, I do. You know what I'm saying? It's just, we got to have somewhere to get our shadow shit off. Like shit, digging in your nose, just wiping on the wall. That's just some shadow shit. You know what I'm saying? Nobody looking, sweeping under the rug. Because we got to be honest, that's a part of who you really are. The shit that you do and think and feel when nobody's watching. When you think nobody's watching or you think nobody looking. And until we come to a place where we can accept those parts of ourselves, then we'll just be living in a land of illusions. You know? Just be living in a land of glamour. And I think I'm going to just leave it at that. This is the first installment of District After Dark. And I'm going to holler at y'all on the next one.
They saying I drove a getaway car, but I cannot see. I'm legally blind. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. I'm innocent.